Hey there, kids. It's so good to see you. For tonight's reading, I picked a special book that is near and dear to my heart as I first became familiar with the story through a film from, I want to say, 1946. 1940s in sometime. It's called It's a Wonderful Life. And one of the characters in It's a Wonderful Life, the character's name is Tommy. He plays the son. He's about 4 years old in the movie. He later wrote a book about It's a Wonderful Life, but transformed it a bit to make it more kid-friendly and appropriate to all your stories and perhaps some issues you're going through. And I'm going to read that one for you today. It's called It's a Wonderful Life for kids. And for those of you that aren't familiar with the film It's a Wonderful Life, give your parents a nudge. I think it'd be most appropriate for you to watch this sometime in the month of December or January. Very powerful film, and you can draw a lot of parallels to our faith and how the main character, George Bailey, he battles with his own faith. So have a watch with your folks. If you've seen it already, then make sure you mention it to me in the halls when you see me. Oh, 1946. That's the film. 1946. Lucky guess. Or maybe I saw that subconsciously earlier, and that's how I knew that. So It's a Wonderful Life for Kids by Jimmy Hawkins. Remember, Jimmy Hawkins is in the 1946 film, he played the 4-year-old boy. So that would make him, 81 or so by now. And this takes place in Bedford Falls. Bedford Falls. A very worried George and Mary Bailey were praying for their son Tommy's safe return. "Please bring Tommy home," said his sister Zuzu. Their pleas were heard way up in heaven. Please, no E at the end. Please, like their cries, they're begging, essentially. "Looks like we'll have to send somebody down," said one angel. "I know this family," said an angel named Clarence. If you've seen the movie, I bet you can draw a connection to who Clarence might be. If you haven't, make sure you read the book after you've seen the movie as well. I think Arthur should handle this one. This is supposed to be depicting the angel speaking. In a flash, a third angel joined them. "You sent for me, sir?" "Yes, Arthur. An 11-year-old boy on Earth needs your help," said Clarence. "He's thinking of running away from home. He's scared. Very scared." "Sir, if I accomplish my mission, will I get my wings? It has been 205 years. "Arthur, I asked that very same question once. You do a good job with Tommy Bailey, and you'll get your wings. If you're to help, you'll want to know something about him. Now look down there." "But I can't see." "Oh, I forgot. You haven't got your wings yet. There. Now can you see anything?" "Oh, why, yes. This is amazing." "That's the Bailey house at 320 Sycamore," said Clarence. "Oh, they're having a Christmas party," said Arthur. "They all look so happy. Except that boy touching the wall. Who's that?" "That's your problem," said Clarence. "Tommy Bailey, back when he was 4. That's Tommy there. You see him touching the wall? Wonder what he's doing. The wall felt strangely hot to Tommy. He made his way through the crowd to his dad and yanked on his coat. Excuse me, he said. "Excuse you for what?" asked his father. The wall is really hot, Daddy," said Tommy. "Don't bother Daddy, Tommy. He's busy," said his brother Pete. Concerned, George followed Tommy over to the wall and laid his hand on it. Then he called over his friend Bert, the cop, to examine it too. See them touching the wall? "It looks like something's wrong," said Arthur. "What is it?" "You'll see," said Clarence. "First, let's take a look at Tommy a little later, when he is 7 years old." So this is Tommy at 4. Now we're going to jump ahead to when he's 7. As Tommy swept the floor at Gower Drugs, he talked to a regular customer sitting alone at a table. I see you here all the time, Tommy said to the woman. You must really like ice cream. My name's Tommy Bailey. The woman smiled. Pleased to meet you, Tommy. I'm Mrs. Davis. And yes, I like ice cream. She lowered her voice to a whisper. But to tell you the truth, the real reason that I come here is to see Mr. Gower. He seems like such a nice man. He is, Tommy agreed. He gives me free ice cream for sweeping up. Tommy looked over to the counter where Mr. Gower was working. I wish I could cheer him up, though. He's been real sad since his wife died. I know how that is, Mrs. Davis said with a sigh. Just then, Mr. Gower came over. Well, Tommy, you've done a fine job. What flavor will it be? Vanilla, please. Oh, and say hi to Mrs. Davis. She thinks you're nice. Tommy, I didn't ask you to introduce me to Mr. Gower. Oh, I'm so embarrassed. Oh, I'm glad he said something, said Mr. Gower. I've noticed you, too. I'll be closing as soon as I make Tommy his cone. Then, would you care to go for a walk? Yes, I'd like that, said Mrs. Davis. Because of Tommy's introduction, Clarence told Arthur. Remember, Clarence and Arthur are the angels above looking down on us. Because of Tommy's introduction, Clarence told Arthur, Mr. Gower and Mrs. Davis eventually got married. Now watch this, Arthur. Tommy is 9, and he has a paper route. One very hot summer day, Mrs. Carter offered Tommy a glass of lemonade. As they were talking, Mrs. Carter started gasping for air. Then she asked for help. Without hesitation, Tommy ran into the street to flag down a passing car. You gotta help, mister, Tommy yelled to the driver. The man pulled over and rushed to Mrs. Carter, while Tommy went inside to call the doctor. In a few minutes, Mrs. Carter was feeling better again. Tommy and the man waited until the doctor arrived before going their separate ways. A very grateful Carter, Mrs. Carter, waved goodbye. Well, I don't understand, said Arthur. Tommy is obviously a very good boy. Why would he want to run away? We're getting there, said Clarence. Now Tommy's 11. He's been collecting money from the 6th graders for a library fund. Wow, said Tommy, counting the money in the envelope. I'll change that intonation. Wow, said Tommy, counting the money in the envelope. We've collected more than $80. That should buy a lot of new books, said Susan. Thanks for all your help, said Tommy. I couldn't have done it without you. That's okay, Tommy, said Susan. You're always helping me. As Susan turned to leave, the school books and papers she was carrying fell to the floor. Tommy put the money envelope on the windowsill and bent down to help her pick them up. See it right there? That's the right thing to do, help her out. See? What did I just tell you? Susan said with a grin. A grin's like a smile. Just then, Nick ran up to them. Tommy, weren't you supposed to meet your dad at work? You'd better get going right away. Tommy hit his forehead with his palm. I forgot I promised to help him after school today. All right, see you guys tomorrow, he called as he sped down the hall, leaving the money behind. Uh-oh. You ever get so caught up in something you forget to do something else? Me too. Isn't this Roy Rogers coin neat? Tommy said to Cousin Tilly, the receptionist at the Bailey Building and Loan. I ordered it through the mail. It's going to be my good luck charm. Yeah, that's pretty swell, Tommy. Happy trails to you, as Roy Rogers would say. You all know that song. We sing it at the end of the school year in our 8th grade farewell. Now put it away and get those folders into alphabetical order before your father... Oops, too late. He's here now. Tommy, your teacher just called, said Mr. Bailey. She asked about the library fund money. You were supposed to deliver it to the principal. What happened to it, son? Tommy hit his forehead again as he remembered he'd left the envelope behind. Oh, I know right where it is. Can I go back to school and bring it to the office? Sure, but you better hurry. The school will be locked up soon. You want me to give you a lift? No, Dad. You're busy. I'll run over and be back before you even know I'm gone. But when he got there, he saw that the envelope was gone. Where could it be? "Hello, Tommy. I just spoke with your father," said Tommy's teacher. "Did you get the money to the principal's office?" Tommy didn't know what to say. Not yet, Mrs. Welch. I'm just going there now." "Oh, I'm afraid you're too late. It's all locked up. Why don't you just give me the envelope for safekeeping tonight, and then we can meet in the office first thing tomorrow morning?" I've got a better idea," said Tommy, walking backwards down the hallway. "I'll give it to my dad. He can keep it in the building alone overnight. It is a bank, after all." Tommy turned and sprinted off. "But Tommy," said Mrs. Welch as he disappeared around the corner. You ever get faced with a difficult question and you don't know how to answer it because you don't want to get yourself in trouble, you don't want to admit a mistake? It's difficult. It happens on a daily basis to you probably. Tommy ran all the way to the bridge at the end of town. He was desperate. Desperate means you do anything. He had no idea where the money had gone or how he could replace it by tomorrow morning. "Please help me," he prayed with his eyes shut tight. "Everyone will think I stole it. My parents and friends will never forgive me." When Tommy opened his eyes, a man was standing next to him. Tommy backed up a little. Who are you?" he stuttered. "Well, Tommy, I'm Arthur. Angel, second class. I'm the answer to your prayer." "How do you know my name?" Tommy asked suspiciously. "I'm not supposed to talk to strangers." "I'm no stranger," said Arthur. "I'm your guardian angel. I'm here to help." "If you're an angel, where are your wings?" Tommy peered behind Arthur's back. Peered means looked. "I haven't won my wings yet," said Arthur. "But you'll help me, won't you?" "I'm the one who needs help," said Tommy. "I need $80 and fast." We don't have money in heaven," said Arthur. "Then how am I going to fix this?" Tommy asked, tears welling up in his eyes. I should just disappear." "It's not worth running away for $80, said Arthur. "You don't realize how important you are to so many people." "Oh, yeah?" said Tommy. "Well, tomorrow they're going to wish I had never been born." "I already wish I had never been born." Arthur heaved a deep sigh. "Oh, not this again. When will people ever learn?" And if you've seen the film, you'll know what he means by again. Not this again. When will people ever learn? If you haven't seen the film, it's a reference to the film. So make sure you watch it. It's good. "What do you think, Clarence?" Arthur's now talking up to Clarence. "Who's Clarence?" Tommy asked. "Who are you talking to?" "Yes, Clarence. That'll do it," said Arthur. "All right. You got your wish, Tommy. You were never born." Just then, a big swirl of wind came up, and the snow stopped falling. Tommy reached into his pants pocket, then frantically checked his coat pockets. "You aren't going to find your lucky coin," said Arthur. "You've never existed, so there's no coin." "Great. I must have lost that too," Tommy said. "I do exist. I'm Tommy Bailey. I live at 320 Sycamore." "There is no house at 320 Sycamore," said Arthur. "I don't believe you," said Tommy. "All right, go see for yourself," said Arthur. I wonder where the house went. When they reached 320 Sycamore, or what used to be 320 Sycamore, there was no house there. "What happened?" Tommy asked Arthur. "The house burned down that Christmas Eve. You weren't around to tell your dad about the wall being hot. It was an electrical fire." Tommy's mind reeled in confusion. I don't get what's happening. Where's my family? Maybe Mrs. Carter will know something." Arthur looked up toward the sky and said, "Now I see what you mean about this not being so easy, Clarence." When Tommy rang the doorbell at Mrs. Carter's house, a stranger answered. Hi, is Miss Carter home? I really need to talk to her," said Tommy. Mrs. Carter, said the man. She passed away last year, son. Sorry. Arthur tried to explain as Tommy stumbled away down the street. Don't you see, said Arthur, you weren't able to get there that day when she fainted. Each life touches so many others. If you weren't around, it leaves an awful hole. Tommy ignored him. I don't feel so good, he said. Maybe Mr. Gower can help. Tommy ran down the street into Gower's Drugs. A bell on the door rang as he opened it. Oh, somebody just made it, said Arthur from behind him. Every time a bell rings, it means an angel got his wings. Tommy was surprised that the old guy had kept up with him and wasn't out of breath at all. He approached the soda jerk and said, Excuse me, is Mr. Gower in? Soda jerk is an expression, an older expression obviously, that meant the person behind the counter, working behind the counter. Excuse me, is Mr. Gower in? You must not be from around here. Mr. Gower doesn't own this place anymore. What do you mean? He always gives me free ice cream ever since he got remarried. I introduced him to Mrs. Davis and... The soda jerk interrupted. Look, kid, I don't know what you're talking about. Mr. Gower never married anyone except Mrs. Gower. When she died, he gave everything up and moved to an old folks' home. He's a lonely old man now. Tommy, you weren't there to introduce Mr. Gower to Mrs. Davis, Arthur explained. Don't you see how many people you've helped, even at your age? You've had a wonderful life. Just then, the Bailey family, George, Mary, Zuzu, Janie, and Pete, walked in. Tommy ran to his parents. Oh, Mom, Dad, I missed you so much. I thought you were... Mr. Bailey held Tommy at arm's length. The rest of the Baileys gave each other puzzled looks. I'm afraid you have us confused with someone else, Mr. Bailey said. Are you all right? Asked Mrs. Bailey. Can we help you? Seeing the blank looks on his family's faces, Tommy panicked. Don't you know me? It's Tommy, your son. What happened? Come on, Daddy, said Janie. I want some ice cream. Tommy turned to Arthur for help, but Arthur was nowhere to be seen. I'm telling you, really sharply dressed fellow. Tommy raced back to the bridge where his prayers had been heard before. Please, Mr. Guardian Angel, I want everything to go back to how it was. I won't ever think of running away again. I promise. He burst into tears. Please help me get back. I don't care if I get in trouble for losing the money. I'll pay it back somehow. I just want to be Tommy Bailey again. Please, get me back. Tommy looked up as snow began falling again. Tommy reached into his pocket, and there it was. His lucky coin was back. Happy trails! He cried joyfully, punching the air. Tommy ran home, passing all the spots he loved. Hello, Gower Drugs! As he passed Mrs. Carter's house, he saw her sweeping the walkway. Hi, Mrs. Carter. I'll help you with that later. First, I gotta get home. Hurry, Tommy, she answered. They're all waiting for you. Tommy burst open the door at his house. Yes, it was there. There was his family also, along with Susan, Nick, and Mrs. Welch. Tommy rushed into his parents' arms. This time, they hugged him back. I love you, Mom and Dad, Tommy exclaimed. My baby, cried Mrs. Bailey. Probably a frightening couple of hours for Mom and Dad, too, missing their son. Mr. Bailey said, Tommy, your friends have something for you. Tommy, after you ran out of the school, I realized that you left the money behind by mistake. I took it home with me, figuring we could turn it into the principal tomorrow together. When your mom called asking if I'd seen you, I brought it right over. I should have called earlier. I'm so sorry. It's all my fault, Nick offered. If I hadn't distracted you, you wouldn't have left it. No, don't blame yourselves. You're both good friends, and everything turned out okay in the end. Thank you so much, Tommy said. Mr. Bailey said, someone once told me that no man is a failure who has friends. Come on, everyone, it's dinner time. Just then, Mrs. Bailey rang the dinner bell. Food's on. Every time a bell rings, an angel gets its wings, said Zuzu, taking her place at the table. That's right, Zuzu, Tommy said. He punched the air again and whispered, Good going, Arthur. Pretty neat little story, huh? Hopefully it expresses we're all very integral to God's plan. We all have a purpose on this earth, and God makes no mistakes. We're all here. We need to be here. We're meant to be here, and when we're not here or not doing His will, stuff goes wrong. So it's a wonderful life for kids. Oh, sorry. You need something? Oh. Hey, Mary. What? Oh. What do you want? The moon, Mary? Just say the word, and I'll throw a lasso around it and reel it in. Yeah.